Hello, how is everyone doing? It is your fallen angel back with another video. Today, we're continuing our series on dark psychology. For example, today, we're doing confirmation bias. Now, when we talk about confirmation bias, we want to understand that many people specifically seek out information that not only confirms this said bias, but when they look for something that confirms it, they tend to stick with it. So before we get started, feel free to check us out on Patreon, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram, things of that nature. Also, like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's begin. Here is a little habit most people have that you can certainly use to your advantage in dark psychology. This is called confirmation bias. It's where people pick and choose evidence from stimulus they see in order to confirm their beliefs or prejudice that they already hold. A perfect example of this is think of voting, think of politics, think of anything that is created by man to separate each other, whether this be ethnocentrism, racism, classism, football teams, sports, anything that can create some kind of division. People will seek out confirmation bias to confirm these already upholded beliefs and prejudice that they already have. People will choose to believe something and then search for confirmation in the world around them. They will also ignore and reject information that goes against their bias. It is very hard to change someone's mind. They usually like to stick to their own beliefs and ideas with very little variation. They hate being challenged or told what they're wrong, and they will find ways to dispute all evidence that proves them wrong. So for the most part, people don't enjoy thinking, right? Thinking requires seeing both sides of the argument, whether this be historically, whether this be anything. People just would rather to stick to what they know than to be able to perceive something different. This is why a lot of pre-notion conceptions are so abundant in our society. They will refuse information. They will not look for an external source, or they will not accept new information. Okay? That is a problem we have. That is how propaganda is so rampant, because people don't want to look for the secondary source. They don't want to look for the other side's opinion or the other side's viewpoint. They stick with a perspective and run with it. How can you use this confirmation bias to your advantage? One way is in psychological warfare. If you know that someone believes something ugly or disparaging about himself or herself, you can keep showing him or her evidence that confirms his belief to hurt him or her. So, in dark psychology, we can do things such as we have to understand things operate in duality. While there is positive aspects of dark psychology, there's also negative aspects. So, in psychological warfare, if they believe something that has a negative connotation, we want to reiterate and improve. We want to prove this to be true, so we can hurt them to get something we want. Now, the reason we teach this on this channel is to provide a sense of understanding, not only to help you understand human nature, but also to help be wary of people doing this to yourself. You can also get someone to like you by always confirming their biases and appearing to agree with them. You can play into someone's confirmation bias to convince them that they're right and earn them in your persuasion. You can even employ it in mind control by influencing people, how people think, and molding people into what you want by using their biases. So guys, if you ever want to be an extremely good conversationalist, just hear what people say and just reiterate what they like and what they say. Not only will they like you for this, but it is the easiest way to amalgamate or assimilate with any group of individuals, any ethnicity, any age group. Hear what they're saying and just reiterate what they say. Reiterate it in a different way, prove their biases, and use it to your advantage. This is how you could get in. This is how you can assimilate. This is how you can use this to your advantage for persuasion. People don't like to go. This is why a lot of people who have friends, right? When you're friends with someone, they won't be honest, because honesty usually is like pulling off a band-aid. Friends that are honest with each other end up not being friends anymore because there's some kind of resentment, right? So people just end up agreeing with biases even though they don't believe it. They end up talking behind each other's back because of this. So, with that being said, we can use confirmation bias to our advantage in mind control as well as getting people to do favors for you. Selective perception. Manipulators and deceivers will present information and arguments that support their agenda, and they will actively ignore or downplay any information that contradicts their narrative. This selective perception reinforces their target's existing beliefs or feelings, making it easier to manipulate them. So, in dark psychology, manipulators use information that supports their agenda, and they will deny things. This is also known as gaslighting. They will deny the things that make seem like there's a negative connotation to it. They want to maintain frame when they do this. Cultivating trust. Dark psychology practitioners may initially build trust with their targets by confirming and validating their external beliefs, values, or desires. This fosters a sense of security and rapport, making it easier to manipulate the target in the future. So, this is a tactic people do with dark psychology, not even people that even understand it. This is a subconscious thing. You have to build rapport and trust in order to get what you want, right? So in order to do this, you want to build this type of understanding relationship. You want to build this sort of trust. You want to build this sort of, I agree with you. The more agreeable you are, the more they would want to open up to you. The more disagreeable you are, you're telling their limbic system to either lie to you or to not open up as much. So you want to build this kind of paternal trust. Many psychiatrists do this as well. When they're building reports, they want to be as open and as trustworthy as possible, so they can get their client or their subject to feel at ease. This is how you can put them in a trance state much easier to do your bidding. Emotional manipulation. Dark psychology often involves exploiting emotions, and the confirmation bias plays a role in the process. Manipulators will feed their target information that reinforces their emotional state, such as fear, anger, or insecurity, to maintain control. So, often, using these dark emotions are also a way to maintain control. Think about news outlets that trauma feed people information. This is how you maintain control over a nation. This is how you can also maintain control over individuals, by using their negative emotions against them. This is how we use the limbic system to our advantage. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is a manipulation tactic in which the manipulator makes the target doubt their own perceptions and reality. Confirmation bias can be used to reinforce the gaslighter's version of events and make the target question their own memory and judgment. So this is another tactic being used by dark psychologists, that you can basically alter reality by denying, deny until what your lie becomes a truth. This is how you gaslight effectively. This is how you also get what you want by doing so. Vulnerability to confirmation bias. People are more susceptible to confirmation bias when they are emotionally involved, which most people are operating off this limbic system. Emotionally involved, lack critical thinking skills, or have a strong desire for a particular outcome, or outcome hungry or outcome dependent. Dark psychology techniques exploit these vulnerabilities to reinforce the manipulator's control. So, when someone's emotionally involved, they lack critical thinking skills, or using the neocortex, or have a strong desire for a particular outcome, you can use this to your advantage. Because if they want a particular outcome, you can be the one to invoke this. You can be the one to make sure that, well, if you have to follow this, deny, in order to see this outcome come to fruition. Especially if they're emotionally involved, you can especially use this to your advantage, because they will not be able to differentiate between propaganda, fact, and emotion. To protect oneself from falling victim to confirmation bias and manipulation in dark psychology, it's essential to develop critical thinking skills, be aware of one's own biases, and be cautious when someone consistently presents information that aligns with their agenda while dismissing opposing views. Learning to objectively evaluate information and seeking diverse sources of information can help counter the effects of confirmation bias and reduce susceptibility to manipulation. So guys, what we have to understand is it's always important to always see two sides of the coin. We always have to look at both sides of the argument, because confirmation bias is abundant. People will side with one side without looking at the other side. They would side with the oppressor without even understanding that they're the ones being oppressed, right? So we have to understand, you have to look for all sources of the information before you come to a final conclusion. You can't just be susceptible to one ideology. When you are and you put your emotions involved, you are more susceptible to being manipulated. So it's essential that you use your critical thinking skills, you use your neocortex to its full potential, and seek out the information. And always be wary of how people can use this confirmation bias against you, using your emotions and your desire and your ideology for outcome dependency against you. So guys, this was a video on confirmation bias and how it's intertwined with dark psychology. Feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd love to read them. Also, like and subscribe. Feel free to check us out on Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, things of that nature. It has been your fallen angel, and I am out.